Hello and welcome back. In this series, The Holy Science, in today's video, we are going to discuss few important concepts written in this book, mentioned in this book, which is known as the Holy Science, which are related to the calculation of yoga, the ages calculation of ages or the yoga. There are four yogas: Satyuga, Treta, Dwapar, Kali Yuga. These are the four yogas. So, in this book, I would recommend you to read this book completely thoroughly. In fact, this particular portion, which is not exactly the first chapter of the Holy Science, it's just the preface of this book. I would recommend you to read this. I'm just going to tell you the important facts and important points that have been discussed in this book. I'm not going to go into much deeper details, but yeah, as much as possible, which is important and which we have to think of, which we should be able to connect with the today's events, right? With the events whatever happening these days, in these years, in year 2024, we have to just evaluate them based on the calculation of the ages or the yuga. So in this book, this year 499, this has been mentioned as the farthest point from the Vishnu navel. We have studied about this Vishnu navel. This is the Vishnu navel where all the auspicious energy is available. When you move like this in a circular path, then first the Satyuga passes, then the Dwapar passes, then the Treta passes, then the Dwapar passes, and then the Kali Yuga passes. When the Kali Yuga passes, then you reach here, the farthest point, 499, year 499, after the birth of Isa, which is Christ, right? So after the Isa, AD, right? This year 499. This year 499 was the year when our solar system was at the farthest point from this Vishnu navel. And since it was at the farthest point, then if you read the history around these years like 499, 500, 600, then you will be able to see that lot of chaos was there in the world, lot of dacoity, lot of chaos, just snatching the things from others, attacking the other kingdoms and brutally killing the people, innocent people, all those kind of cruelties you could see here. And people were just fascinated about the materialistic things, the power, the money, right? So all these things they were fascinated about. So this was the darkest age, year 499. Okay. So this was the time then when the 1200 years, when you move from here, this was Satyuga when it ended. Suppose this was Treta and this was Dwapara when it was ended, and now it was 1200 years of period when the Kali Yuga ended. So Kali Yuga, when 1200 years surpassed of Kali Yuga, then it reaches here, which was 499 as per our current calculation, as per our calendars, right? So it was 499. So in the year 499, we were at the farthest point from the Vishnu navel, and hence the people in our solar system on the earth, they were least knowledgeable, I should say, right? So this is what has been mentioned in the book itself. Okay. Now after this point, after 499, we started moving upwards. When we started moving upwards, then we passed again 1200 years, right? When you start moving again, then you move in the reverse direction. From here till here, you were moving from Satyuga to Treta to Dwapar to Kali Yuga. Now again, when you are moving upwards, then you are moving in this way: Kali Yuga, then Dwapar, then Treta, and then again back you will be in the Satyuga. So basically, we are moving back in this cycle. We are moving like Kali Yuga, then Dwapar. So now, when we were in the Kali Yuga, but we were moving upwards, then the scholars started identifying the mistake. Like, we are assuming that the Kali Yuga is of 4,32,000 years, but they started identifying the mistakes. They started identifying the problems in the explanation of the age calculation. Okay. So what happened that time? So they realized it and they tried to find it in the various sources, one of the authentic sources which was like Manu Sangita, Manu scripture. So in the Manu scriptures, this has been clearly mentioned that Kali Yuga is only of 1200 years. It is only of 1200 years. So they tried to find out why it came as 4,32,000 years. If it was 1200 years, then how it became 4,32,000 years? So then they found the reason for this. How they found it? They found that these 1200 years, which was mentioned in the Manu Sangita and which was for the humans, they were actually considered as the, years of devas, the deities. So these 1200 years, which were there for humans, which were mentioned for the humans, they were considered as the 1200 deva year, right? Which is like for the deities, for the devatas. So these were considered as 1200 devatas years. So 1200 devatas year, which means deity years, what it will mean for the human years. So what happens that in 1 year we have 360 days, right? Similarly, we have 360 days for the deva year. Our 1 year, right? If we talk about our 1 year, then we have 360 days. But when these 360 days passes, then we have to count them as 360 years for the deities. I mean, deities, when for us it was 360 days in a year. Understand from this point of view. For us, it was 360 days in a year. But these 360 days were considered as 360 days of deities for the devatas. So when these 360 years for devatas were considered, then it is assumed, then it is known by the scholars that 1 day of devata is equal to our 1 year, right? So devata's 360 years will be calculated as 1200 into 360. Then it becomes, if you multiply this, then you will get this 4,32,000 years. And that is how it came out to be 4,32,000 years. Okay. Similarly, you can calculate the age of Dwapar, Treta and Satyuga. They will, come, if you calculate like this way, if you see the Dwapar age, then it is like 2,400. If you multiply it by 360, you will get it. It will be like 8,64,000 years. And if you multiply, the ages of Treta, which is 4,000, it is like not 4,000, it is like 3,600 years. If you multiply it by 360, then you will be able to get, 12,96,000 years, which is like in these days, it is considered like Treta is of 12,96,000 years. Okay, then comes like 4,800 years of Satyuga. In last video, we have done this calculation. If you multiply it by 360, then you will be able to get the age of Satyuga, which is mentioned these days, which comes around 17 lakhs and then 92,000 years. So that is how this mistake was identified. So this 360 days of deities, which is 360 years for the humans, these were multiplied, and that is why these calculations came out, right? So I hope you are understanding this point, and this is really an interesting one which has been mentioned in this book. Let me tell you one thing very frankly, that it is not the point whether I believe in this or not. The point is that whatever has been written in this book, I am just telling you as it is. Okay, and I have done the calculations for these years in which we are living, these like 2021, 22, 23, these kind of years I am talking about. So we will just do a very, kind of validation as well on this calculation. And astonishingly, I found that most of the things are fitting there. Okay, they are fit to the calculation. So let me tell you more from this book. So this book, which is the Holy Science, this was written in year 1894. When 1894 was the time, then 194 years of the Dwapar age were completed. At the time of 1894, 194 years were completed. And you know that 200 years are there for the Dwapar's transition period. Okay, 200 years. So if you multiply 190, no, not multiply, actually, if you add 6, 194 plus 6, then the 200 years completed. So now do one thing. If the Dwapar is of 2400 years, and if you deduct this 194 years from this complete calculation, then you found like 2206 years. And now, if you add this 1894 plus 2206, the remaining year, then you will be able to find that 4100. This will be the number of year when the Dwapar will actually end and the Treta will start. So from the year 4100, Treta will be starting. So 4099 will be the last year of the Dwapar. And then from the 4100, the Treta will start. And again, in the last 200 years before the Treta, again there will be a transition period, and again a new world order will be established. Okay. So now come to the next thing. The next thing is that when you will reach into the Treta, because now you are moving upwards. See here, we are moving upwards. As we are moving upwards, we are approaching near to this Vishnu navel. Since we are approaching near to Vishnu navel, then in that case, our knowledge and our intellect will become pious, and we will start knowing those things which we are not even able to know or understand after reading so many books. Right? So those things, those gyan, that will manifest himself in you, basically in ourselves, basically like in humans, right? So it will again come to us. That knowledge will come again to us. So at that time, when this knowledge will come, then what kind of knowledge is specialty of the Treta? This is the knowledge of magnetism. So magnetism is the specialty of the Treta age. So by 4100, we will be able to understand more about the magnetism, right? As of now, we know only two things, that in nature we find magnets freely, and also when we when we use the electric charge, if some electric charge is running or some electric current is running, because of that again a electric field is created. That we know, but more than this about the magnetism we will be able to understand after 4099, which is the time of starting of Treta. Okay. Now come to the calculation. Since in year 1894, 194 years were completed for the Dwapar. So how many years for the transition remains? 6 years. So if you see, then you will see that around year 1900, the transition period was completed for the Dwapar, right? Transition period for Dwapar was completed. Okay, now if you see from Mahabharat, then you know that when the 14 to 15 years were remaining for the Dwapar to complete and before the transition period to start, that time Lord Krishna's family fought a war. The entire family got destructed. Why? Because there was a curse from Mata Gandhari to Lord Krishna. She cursed Lord Krishna that your family will also get destructed by fighting among themselves. So that thing became around 14 years before the Dwapar was ending. See, one more interesting thing. In this cycle, when we were moving downwards, then the Mahabharata happened at the end of the Dwapar. But if you are moving upward, then obviously this will happen at the beginning of the Dwapar. I hope you are understanding what I am trying to say. It's just like the mirror image. Something was happening at this point, and now this will happen. If this was happening at the end of Dwapar, then the same will happen at the starting of Dwapar in the upward cycle, upward moving cycle. Okay, so this is how it is working. So now, if you see, if you add 14, right, then you get 1914. At this point of time, if you see, the First World War of our era happened. The First World War happened in around 1914. Okay, and if you see the the other thing, the Mahabharata war, then in that case you can see that before the Mahabharata, before the Dwapar ended and the transition period started, before that 39 years back, Mahabharata war, around 39 to 40 years back, Mahabharata war happened. Right? So again, if you see, it started around 1939. So if you add 39, then you can see 1939. And this was the time when Second World War happened. Okay? Listen very carefully. This thing, till here, it is all written in this book. Let me tell you. Let me give you this disclaimer that this thing has been written in this book. But after this, whatever I'm telling to you related to Krishna's family, all these things, these are as per my understanding, and these things could be wrong as well. Let me tell you very frankly that this is only my calculation which I have done, but it could be wrong because I'm not the biggest scholar. I'm not the scholar, right? Basically, I have just tried to do some kind of calculation based on the calculation given in this book. And now I have found these things. So in year 1939, Mahabharata war happened. Okay, now at the time of Mahabharata, which is like 1939, if you see, at the time of Mahabharata, Lord Krishna was 89 years old. He was 89 years old. Now add this 89 to 1939, this time period. Now add this 89 to 1939. It came out to be 2028. Right? This is the 2028 which you can consider as the birth time of Lord Krishna. We are living in 2024 right now. Now, what will happen in 2028? Again, understand one more thing. 2028, you can consider the time parallel to Lord Krishna when he was born, when Lord Krishna was born. Now, do one thing. By the time, Lord Krishna became 6 years old, he killed few of the enemies individually in the individual fight. Like Putana was killed, like Kansa was killed. There were many asuras, there were many demons which were killed. But Lord Krishna killed them individually. Try to understand this fact. He tried to kill everyone individually. Now, if you do this thing, 2028 minus 6, you get 2022. If you get this 2022, then you can find that from year 2022, the personal wars started. Wars at the personal front started. These were not full-scale world war. These wars were individual wars, started at the individual front, personal front, like Russia and Ukraine. You can see that in year 2022, the personal wars started because by the time of 6 years old, when Krishna became 6 years old, he killed every enemy in personal war. So, in the form of Lord Krishna, that divine energy is doing some kind of thing in the form of personal war starting from 2022. And if you understand this, then you can find that after the year 2022, as the years are passing, 2023, there was another war in the form of, there was a war in the Middle East in which Israel and Hamas, you can say the Philistine are involved. So these all wars are getting done at the individual personal front. So these will keep happening till 2028. You will not see a full scale war where all the countries have involved in some kind of group to create two different groups and they will start fighting. That you will not see. You will be able to see that most of the countries are getting involved in the personal war at the personal front. Maybe the other countries, the superpowers, might be giving them support, but still it will be just a personal front war for different countries. It may be that different countries, we don't like that our country should be involved, but who knows? These kind of war, personal wars at one front, two front, three fronts, these will keep happening, but this will not be a full scale complete war, right? So if you see the war timing around 2028 and maybe before that 2025 to 2026, if you see, we are surrounded by three countries. One is Bangladesh, one is Pakistan, and one is China. So basically, if you see Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan, these three are one country because they were one country only. They have been divided, but they were originally one country. And now, if China gets involved somehow around 2025 and 2026, then it will be again a personal front war. You can consider that. But yeah, there will be different fronts opened for India. Maybe from the three fronts, India could face problems. From the front of Bangladesh, from the front of China, from the front of Pakistan. From all these fronts, India could face the problems. Very soon, maybe the Bangladesh will or the other country will threaten India that we are going to, do something in your country and we will capture your country and we will capture your capital. Something like that you could hear very soon. They will do these things because this is that kind of time. If my calculation is correct, and today itself, today is, it's like 14th of September. So today I have heard a news that some kind of terrorist group or some kind of group has threatened that we will just move into the territory of India and we will do something in the capital of India, right? So that kind of threats, they are coming, right? So these kind of things are happening, right? So very soon, maybe you will be able to see some kind of problem. I wish that should not happen, but the calculations and the things looks like that only. I wish that God should save our country, and as per these calculations, I should be proved wrong. Okay, so this is my calculation. This is my understanding based on which I have done this calculation. Okay, and now let me tell you one more thing. Like till 2028, things will be worse for the entire world. After 2028, which means before the birth of Lord Krishna, when the situations were not that bad, those not bad situations will start and they will go till 2032 to 38. This time world will acquire a new world order and there will be peace established by 2032 to 38. So this is how my calculation is, you know, working. This is how I have calculated things and I have interpreted the things. So what I'm trying to say that if you are reading the Puranas, then read the Puranas and try to find out that in which age, in which yuga, what happened. And based on that, if you understand that, just try to find out the mirror image in the movement, in this movement. If you see this, in this movement, if you see in this movement, if you want to see what will happen at this point of time, then you need to find out from the Puranas what happened this time. Suppose you want to see what happened at the end of Treta, then you can find out from the, scriptures from Puranas, and you can find out the mirror image of the same point here moving upward, and then you will be able to understand and you will be able to predict that yes, when the world will be in this situation, when the world will be in this year, then in that case these kind of events, something similar to these kind of events, something this kind of disturbance or something this kind of good time will come again, right? So you will be able to predict. So if you are able to understand this, and if you try to read the scriptures, your Puranas, and if you try to match the things, then I'm sure that you will be able to find out some kind of similarity here. So try to do this. So this part from here, this I have calculated, right? Maybe I'm wrong. I'm telling you frankly, because this is as per my understanding. My understanding could be wrong. I'm not that a scholar who has written this book, but I have tried to interpret these things. Okay, so with this, I would like to say have a nice day and bye bye to all of you, and we'll meet in the next video. Till then, namaskar.